It came closest to the sun yesterday. Unfortunately, we can't look at it from Earth because the Earth is on the opposite side of the sun. That could have also been a hint of a technological design.
3I Atlas is once again visible to observers. After several weeks hidden behind the sun, it has emerged from perihelion and is behaving in a manner quite unlike what one would expect from a typical comet. Instead of simply reflecting sunlight, 3I Atlas emits light with a noticeable bluish tint. It appears colder in color, but at the same time more energetically powerful than could be explained by heating from the star's photosphere with a temperature of about 5,800 K. According to Harvard professor Avi Loeb, this adds another mystery to an already long list of anomalies. It is the 10th property that is statistically improbable for a natural celestial body. The object follows a path that almost coincides with the plane of the ecliptic, the same plane in which the planets move. In addition, other oddities were identified during the observations, 10 in total. One of the scientists' key conclusions is that measuring color alone can radically change the interpretation. If the blue tint really indicates a source of energy that exceeds the effective temperature of the sun, this opens the door to hypotheses about asymmetric or autonomous energy sources not previously encountered in nature. December 19th is marked as a critical date. That is when 3I Atlas will be closest to Earth, and observations at that moment should either confirm or refute the most daring assumptions. We usually assume that comets glow due to the reflection of starlight and the scattering of solar radiation by dust. But what if the spectral temperature of the object is higher than that of the star it orbits? Such a discrepancy breaks the usual logic and requires close attention. Each new discovery immediately narrows the range of possible explanations to something truly unusual. The next morning, reports came in of a sharp increase in the brightness of 3I Atlas, and, more importantly, of a change in its color characteristics. Now the object looks noticeably bluer than our sun. This is unexpected for astronomers because the presence of dust usually makes objects redder, not bluer. These initial facts lay the foundation for further analysis and create the very intrigue that will determine how we interpret all other observed anomalies. While ground-based telescopes lost sight of 3I Atlas behind the dazzling glare of the sun, space observatories took over the observation of the object. The first signals came from the stereo and SOHO satellites equipped with coronagraphs, instruments capable of darkening the solar disk and capturing objects against its background. The images clearly show a small but unusually stable light source crossing the field of view with minimal deviation from the plane of the ecliptic. Unlike ordinary comets, 3I Atlas has virtually no tail, although based on its trajectory, the object should have been actively evaporating as it approached the sun. Analysis of the images showed that the brightness of the source remained stable longer than that of standard dust emissions. This gave researchers reason to assume that the light comes not only from reflection, but also from its own radiation. That is, the object may be energetically active. Professor Avi Loeb noted that in the entire history of the stereo observation program, no comet, even the most unusual ones, such as C2020 F3 Neowise, has ever exhibited such behavior. The distribution of brightness around the object added an additional mystery. The coronagraph images show a clear halo, but without the typical diffuse structure. In a normal coma, dust gradually disperses, creating a smooth gradient. Here, however, the glow remains symmetrical and dense, as if there is a limited shell around 3I Atlas, supported by an unknown mechanism. According to preliminary data, the radius of this shell is about 700 kilometers, and the spectral temperature of the source exceeds that of the sun by about 15%, which is physically impossible for reflected light. When the object emerged from behind the sun, satellite sensors recorded a short burst in the near ultraviolet range. This type of radiation usually accompanies the excitation of atoms, but in this case, the source was too far away for solar radiation to be the primary cause. If this effect is confirmed by ground-based observations, it will be the first recorded case of an interstellar body showing signs of activity not related to the thermal evaporation of ice. Scientists are already preparing a series of observations using the JWST and VLT telescopes to refine the composition and behavior of the object as the angle of illumination changes. Everything suggests that the coming weeks may provide a decisive answer, whether 3I Atlas is a rare natural phenomenon or something beyond the known models of cometary dynamics. When the Theta 3I Atlas object left the solar corona and became visible again from Earth, astronomers expected to see the usual pattern for such cases, a rapid drop in brightness and a decrease in activity. However, the opposite happened. The brightness of the object unexpectedly increased almost threefold, without any visible increase in the area of the coma or tail. None of the recorded spectra showed characteristic lines of evaporating volatile substances, neither water, carbon dioxide, nor methane. This contradicts all models of the behavior of cometary bodies heated to such high temperatures. According to calculations, at such a degree of proximity to the Sun, the ice on the surface should have evaporated completely, and the remains of the nucleus should have been destroyed by tidal forces. But 3I Atlas not only retained its shape, its thermal signature was abnormally stable. The measured surface temperature was 100 Kelvin higher than theoretical. For comparison, even the most active comet, C2020 F3 Neowise, did not deviate by more than 15 Kelvin. This means that the heating was not caused solely by sunlight. Perhaps there was an additional source of energy inside the object, chemical, magnetic, or even artificial. The shape of the light curve attracted particular attention. It pulsated with a period of about 7 hours. Such regularity indicates either the rotation of a body with uneven albedo or internal energy pulses. Some researchers from Avi Loeb's group suggested that such fluctuations could be analogous to directed emissions or reflections, a kind of modulation that occurs during technical activity. Of course, these hypotheses are not officially recognized, but even cautious astrophysicists have acknowledged that the observed effects do not fit into standard scenarios of cometary dynamics. Interestingly, at the moment of peak brightness, 3I Atlas demonstrated a stable acceleration vector that did not correspond to the action of gravitational and gas dynamic forces. Similar thrust anomalies had already been noted earlier in Oumuamua, but here they were more pronounced and lasted longer. Avi Loeb noted in his report that in the absence of mass emissions, the only explanation remains radiation pressure on a flat surface, which could mean that the body has a shape resembling an artificial plate or sail. Each new round of observations adds details but does not clarify the essence. If the object really has internal energy or a special geometry, this could be the first evidence in history that interstellar artifacts are not limited to natural bodies. After 3I Atlas passed its perihelion, its motion was carefully analyzed by specialists at the Minor Planet Center, MPC, and several independent research groups. Initial data showed that the object's acceleration did not obey the laws applicable to ordinary bodies under the influence of solar wind or gravity. Even after taking into account possible gas emissions, photon pressure, and tidal perturbations, the acceleration vector remained 17 to 19% higher than calculated. Moreover, the direction of the vector deviated from the Sun object line by a constant angle of 3.1 grn, which cannot be explained by symmetric evaporation. Modeling showed that the trajectory of 3I Atlas is close to hyperbolic, but with a barely noticeable precession, which is uncharacteristic of freely moving bodies. In essence, the comet behaves as if it is responding to an external impulse or has the ability to stabilize its course. It is particularly strange that the acceleration only manifested itself after passing the point of maximum approach to the Sun. Usually at this point, the activity of comets declines. Here, however, the movement became more precise and stable, as if the object were correcting its own orbit. Calculations performed by Avi Loeb's laboratory at Harvard showed that if the effects of gravity and solar pressure are excluded, a residual force of about 1.7106 n-kg remains. At the same time, no visible traces of discharges, emissions, or debris were observed. For a body about 200 meters in size, this is too much to be a coincidence and too little to suggest a reactive principle of motion. Professor Loeb cautiously noted that such parameters correspond to the radiation pressure on an ultra-thin structure with a high reflectivity coefficient, similar to the concept of a light sail. Interest in the object grew sharply when the trajectory of 3I Atlas crossed the orbit of Mars. The movement was almost parallel to the plane of the ecliptic, with a minimum deviation of only 2.9 dir. Such coaxial alignment with planetary orbits is extremely rare for interstellar bodies. They usually enter at acute angles, reflecting the randomness of their path. But in this case, the alignment seemed deliberate. It is hard to believe that such precise orientation is the result of a random gravitational game. Some independent astronomers have even suggested that 3I Atlas may be moving along a predetermined course, either under the influence of some self-correcting mechanism or under the influence of a yet unknown factor related to the magnetic field or interaction with the solar wind. No known comet has ever demonstrated such a clean, engineered line of motion. After passing perihelion, researchers focused their attention on analyzing the mass and structure of 3I Atlas. Under such conditions, ordinary comets lose a significant amount of material. Ice evaporates, the surface is destroyed, and a cloud of dust forms around it. However, observations from 3 space platforms, SOHO, Stereo A, and GOES 19, showed the opposite. The brightness of the object increased, but no traces of decay or emissions were found. Photometric data indicated that the luminosity had increased more than threefold, while the spectrum shifted towards shorter wavelengths, from a characteristic yellowish-white hue to a rich blue. This is extremely unusual. Dust and gas usually scatter light toward the warm side, making the comet redder. Here, the opposite was observed. as if the body was not reflecting but emitting light itself. Avi Loeb and his colleagues noted that the measured color temperature exceeds the temperature of the solar photosphere, which is approximately 5,800 Kelvin. According to all the laws of thermodynamics, an object receiving energy from the sun cannot be hotter than its source, unless it has its own internal source of radiation. To test this hypothesis, the spectral data was compared with known samples of plasma and thermonuclear processes. However, no natural option, neither sublimation reaction, nor reflection from a metal surface, nor ionization of gases, explained the observed level of radiation. When scientists ran simulations, they found that to produce such a blue spectrum, the material on the surface of 3I Atlas must have a temperature of at least 8,000 K. But at the same time, and this is the key point, no signs of destruction were observed. No fractures, no evaporating trails, no ejections of fragments. As one member of the International Observation Team noted, if it were ordinary cometary ice, it would have evaporated instantly. Meanwhile, analysis of the density and reflectivity of the surface revealed an equally strange property: extremely low albedo with high reflectivity in the ultraviolet range. Simply put, the object appeared dark but reflected shortwave radiation, which is impossible for standard minerals and ice. Scientists cautiously suggested that this could indicate the presence of a complex multilayer structure, possibly made of a material resembling nickel-iron alloys. Later, spectroscopy confirmed this fact. The ratio of nickel to iron corresponded to the proportions typical of industrial alloys of terrestrial origin, but not to natural bodies in the solar system. If it is confirmed that 3I Atlas really consists of processed metals, it will be an event comparable in scale to the discovery of the first radio signature of extraterrestrial origin. Further spectral observations finally confirmed that scientists were dealing with something that did not fit into the framework of conventional cosmochemistry. Instead of water, ice, carbon, and ammonia, which make up ordinary comets, 3I Atlas showed a metallic composition: iron, nickel, and traces of other heavy elements, more typical of melted meteorites than of bodies formed on the outskirts of star systems. But that wasn't the most surprising thing. The spectrum recorded a ratio of nickel to iron that almost exactly matches that found in industrial alloys produced on Earth. Natural objects formed in the vacuum of space have completely different proportions, random, chaotic, without clear patterns. Here, however, there was excessive precision, as if the material had been designed, and while such conclusions might seem overly bold, subsequent data only added to the intrigue. The humidity level in the 3I Atlas structure was only about 4%. This makes it one of the driest known bodies in space, drier than the Atacama Desert on Earth. This parameter is incompatible. With a natural comet, they consist of 80-90% water and frozen gases. It turns out that what we have before us is not a dirty snowball, but rather a monolith of metal covered with an unknown, a material that is resistant to extreme temperatures and radiation. But there is one detail that gave researchers an almost mystical feeling. 3I Atlas came from the same section of the sky where the famous WOW signal was recorded in 1977, the most plausible candidate for extraterrestrial radio communication in the entire history of observations. The coincidence of coordinates turned out to be almost perfect. The difference in the direction of movement did not exceed a fraction of a degree. 48 years passed between the events, and yet the trajectories crossed within the same sector of the sky. It's as if two arrows, shot half a century apart, hit the same center of the target, commented one of the project participants. For Avi Loeb, this coincidence was a reason to talk not just about a statistical anomaly, but about a possible connection between the phenomena. If an artificial radio signal really did originate from this area of space, and now an object with signs of technological origin has flown in from the same place, this is not a coincidence, but a pattern that requires a revision of our entire picture of the world. Each new detail only reinforced the sense of intentionality. 3I Atlas passed close to the orbits of Mars, Venus, and Jupiter, as if following a pre-calculated trajectory, but avoided direct visibility from Earth at the moment of perihelion. The choreography was too precise to be attributed to. Chancellor cautiously suggested that if 3I Atlas really was a fragment or probe created by a civilization possessing thermonuclear or other super-efficient energy technologies, then its appearance could be part of some cosmic scenario aimed at observing or testing the reaction of intelligent beings. When a 10th anomaly was added to the 9 already recorded, and abnormally blue glow at perihelion, even the most cautious researchers acknowledged that standard models no longer worked. A comparison of data from 3 independent observatories showed that 3I Atlas does indeed emit light whose temperature exceeds that of the sun. It does not reflect or scatter. It actually emits. This means that there is an energy source inside the object capable of sustaining intense radiation at a level of 8,000-9,000 Kelvin. This is impossible for natural bodies. Avi Loeb called this the 10th impossibility. In his summary table, he collected all the observed inconsistencies, and together they formed a chain where each new detail only reinforced the improbability of what was happening. Here are the 10 points that changed the perception of the entire scientific community. 1. Trajectory alignment, a deviation from the ecliptic plane of less than 5 kilometers, which for a random interstellar body has a probability of no more than 0.2%. Point 2. Directional ejection of matter toward the sun, rather than away from it, a complete violation of all known laws of comet dynamics. Inconsistency between mass and velocity. Given its enormous mass, the object moves faster than it should. Perfect synchronization of passages near planets, as if the route had been planned in advance. Unusual. Chemical composition, predominance of nickel and iron in industrial proportions. Extreme. Dryness, water content less than 5%. Point 7, polarization of light that does not correspond to any known natural object. Coincidence of the direction of arrival with the coordinates of the WOW signal. No. Destruction under extreme heating. 10. Intrinsic. Radiation in the blue spectrum, indicating an internal energy source. When all these parameters were combined into a single probability calculation, the result was a figure that stunned even skeptics. The chance of such a combination occurring by chance is less than 1 in 10 quadrillion. For clarity, Loeb compared this to winning 15 lotteries in a row or a double lightning strike on one person within a year while holding a royal flush. With such a probability, Occam's razor, entities should not be multiplied unnecessarily, turns against the traditional explanation. The simplest explanation is no longer that this is just another strange comet, but that we are dealing with the product of someone's mind. If Loeb's hypothesis is correct, 3I Atlas possesses technologies capable of generating energy hotter than the solar photosphere. This implies a level of development beyond the models of civilization known to us, possibly the use of antimatter, controlled fusion, or processes that do not fit into our physics. The scientist does not claim that this is definitely an artificial device, but emphasizes that all known natural explanations have proven to be untenable. This means that a new understanding of the very nature of matter and energy is required. Now, the entire scientific world is focused on December 2025. That is when 3I Atlas will pass at its closest distance to Earth, an event that many call the moment of truth. After a week of absence behind the sun, the object reappeared on the celestial map, and observations resumed with renewed vigor. Hundreds of telescopes around the world have already been synchronized for round-the-clock monitoring. Hubble, James Webb, and dozens of ground-based observatories are preparing to aim their mirrors at a single target. Even military and meteorological satellites are connected to the tracking effort, not only in the visible range, but also in the radio, infrared, and ultraviolet ranges. Avi Loeb and his international team are coordinating data collection from 6 continents. Their goal is to obtain direct evidence of what makes 3I Atlas unique. Scientists are looking for the slightest signs of artificial maneuvers, course changes, light pulsations, radio signal modulations, or thermal flares that are not characteristic of natural bodies. The U.S. Space Agency has announced that a special network for rapid data exchange between observatories will be deployed during the approach period. If the object shows even the slightest signs of controllability, the information will reach the scientific community within minutes. Some researchers propose using optical interferometry methods to detect possible micro-movements of the body. Others are preparing high-sensitivity radio interferometers to record directional signals similar to those used in the search for extraterrestrial civilizations. However, even if 3I Atlas turns out to be a natural body, interest in it will not diminish. Its behavior has already caused physicists to question current models of thermodynamics, the dynamics of interstellar objects. In both scenarios, whether it is technology or a new natural phenomenon, humanity stands before the possibility of discovering something that will change our very understanding of matter. Energy, and the evolution of civilizations in the universe. We are not looking for evidence of aliens, Loeb said in a recent interview. We are looking for the truth. And if the truth turns out to be more fantastic than our expectations, well, that's how science moves forward. Now there are less than 2 months left before the decisive approach. Every photon caught by the sensors brings us closer to the solution. And if on December 19th, 2025, 3I SOHO Atlas shows signs of activity that cannot be explained by the laws of nature, it will be the first direct evidence of the existence of extraterrestrial intelligence, an event equal in significance to the discovery of a new continent or the first human spaceflight. If Avi Loeb's hypothesis is confirmed and 3I Atlas really turns out to be not a natural body, but the result of the activity of another mind, it will be the greatest discovery in the history of human civilization. Not just a discovery, but a turning point comparable to the realization that the Earth revolves around the Sun, or the first radio signals crossing the Atlantic. The scientific community is already preparing for such a scenario. Leading universities are holding closed seminars on the topic of extraterrestrial technological artifacts, where physicists, engineers, and philosophers discuss how to proceed if the fact of artificial origin is confirmed. How should the data be interpreted? How should it be explained to society? And most importantly, how can panic be avoided and scientific objectivity maintained? If 3I Atlas bears signs of technology, then someone is capable of creating objects that can withstand extreme temperatures, accelerate without visible fuel, and pass through solar radiation without being destroyed. This indicates a level of engineering skill that is thousands of years ahead of Earth's capabilities. From a philosophical point of view, humanity will have to answer a question that previously only appeared in books and films. If we are not alone, what does that mean for our understanding of life, God, and our place in the universe? Religious and cultural systems will inevitably be confronted with a new reality. For some, this will confirm the idea of a creator operating in multiple worlds. For others, it will be proof of the naturalness of life in the universe and the inevitability of its spread. But the most striking thing is that even if it turns out that 3I Atlas is of natural origin, its very existence still destroys previous models. In this case, science will encounter a new type of interstellar body with unknown physical properties. This will require a revision of the laws of gravity, thermodynamics, optics, and possibly the very theory of the formation of matter. And in both outcomes, humanity wins. Either we discover evidence of the existence of another civilization, or we discover a new class of natural objects that we did not know about before, as Loeb said in his speech at Cambridge. The most exciting thing about science is not the answer, but the opportunity to ask a question that has no answer yet. December 2025 is approaching, a date that may go down in history. In a few weeks, we will find out whether we are looking at an artifact from a distant civilization or a new wonder of nature that challenges our ideas about what is possible. One thing is already clear. 3I Atlas has changed us, even before we understood what we were seeing.